Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very exciting webinar on Health Canada Cosmetics Update 2025, what's changed and how to prepare. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Jacqueline Belomo. I have been in the industry for over 15 years. My specialties are in technical formulation, regulatory compliance, product development. I have fallen in love with regulatory compliance in the last, I would say, 4 years because it is ever changing, ever moving. What do they say? The goalpost always moves. And there's so much that needs to be educated and shared with the industry. So it has become a part of my mission to learn as much as possible about compliance, compliance updates, and help everyone in industry understand what that means and how it impacts you, your products, your marketing, your timing, your distribution, and it's not going to get any easier is kind of the story that we've been seeing, retailer specific, country specific, and today we're going to talk about Canada. I really love what Health Canada is doing here. I think they have a really good plan, and I think they have thought out thoroughly how this directly impacts the safety of the consumers using these products in Canada. Much like the EU and UK, it is all about the consumer and the safety of the consumer. Today, we're going to go through an overall of Health Canada's cosmetic regulations. It took me a while to refresh myself, and it's important to understand what's already existing and what these updates mean. Then we will go through the labeling updates, the ingredient, fragrance, allergen disclosures, updated terms and definitions, mandatory updates in contact information and responsible person, enhanced safety and testing protocol, key compliance dates, and of course, how Registrar can help you become compliant in Canada. So I'm going to kick it off with a very, very easy definition of what Canada defines a cosmetic product as, and it is any substance used to clean, improve, or change the complexion, skin, hair, nails, or teeth, and includes deodorants and perfumes, right? Very clear cut. And it's important to understand there's different pieces, much like the FDA, much like EU, UK, there's an overall cosmetic regulations, and then there's other regulations that are in the scope of consumer projects, right? So the scope of these regulations in the Food and Drugs Act and the Consumer Packaging and Labeling Act provide a high level of consumer protection on the Canadian market. And this, is very, very important to understand. This includes from labeling, the correct labeling on your cosmetic product to ensuring the product's safety and the requirements to sell in the country. So very, very important to understand these pieces and where they come from. For the Food and Drugs Act, it's not so heavily covered for cosmetics, but it's important to understand to protect the consumers from cosmetic products which could have a negative effect when used. So prohibited cosmetics for sale in Canada contain substances which may have a negative health effect on human health, contain any filthy, decomposed, or foreign substances or matter, manufactured, prepared, preserved, packaged, or stored under unsanitary conditions, or uses animal testing data to substantiate the safety of the product, right? We've heard these all before, right? This is all a part of the, FDA's regulations about products, EU, UK regulations about these products. So nothing new that we really need to learn here, but to understand that Health Canada also has this type of structure as well when developing their multi-tiered regulations around a specific product. The cosmetic regulation, standard regulation that all cosmetics have to follow. Health Canada has created the cosmetic ingredient hot list, which is a list of ingredients whose use is prohibited or restricted. Hot list is available directly on Health Canada's website. It's very easy. You could download the Excel or you could do a quick search. And if it's questionable about the product or it's not on there, chances are that you would need further help, to determine that kind of compliance. Again, cosmetics products prohibited from sale in Canada. Cosmetics compounded with a prescription, stain removal for teeth with a pH greater than 4, eye area products containing coal tar dye, cosmetics containing chloroform, cosmetics containing estrogenic substances, products containing mercury or mercury derivatives, hazardous preparations, and then cosmetics not labeled correctly, right? So I'm giving you very, very top line because it's important to understand what the overall, if your product falls into any of these, then you cannot sell it in Canada. And hopefully they don't. But, there's a couple of things, pH greater than 4 for the stain removal for teeth, things like that, that we might not be thinking about. And then also products containing mercury or mercury derivatives. It's always important to understand, even if it's in at an incidental or if there was some type of byproduct for that as well. Existing cosmetic regulation requires an evidence of safety, right? All companies and brands have to provide evidence of a product safety when requested. There are no set standards for what evidence of product safety should contain. If the minister deems the evidence of safety is insufficient, the brand must cease to sell the product in Canada. So we all know that we do our safety testing. We'll get into this a little bit deeper later, but we could enhance our ability to do safety testing, especially when it comes to products, or if it comes to products that have a certain type of use. That is where we need to kind of uncover a little bit more about safety. But some examples of evidence of safety is your standard RIPT, your ocular testing, micro testing, toxicological risk assessment of the overall product and its ingredients and their ingredients for use in the product for its use, right? So, and again, we'll get into that a little bit later. Cosmetic notification form, also known as the CNF. Every product sold in Canada is required to be notified through Health Canada's website. So right now there is a website that you go to and you complete the CNF and you submit it. You get a case submission number, and that's kind of like your golden ticket that you have submitted your cosmetic notification form. This does not mean that you have a cosmetic notification number. So very important to understand that Health Canada needs to review the cosmetic submission before providing you that cosmetic notification number. Each product must be notified individually within 10 working days of the product being made available on the market. Name and address must be on both the notification and the label of the product as well. The CNF is once submitted needs to be saved as an HCXS format. So very specific and very different from everything else. Product is issued a case number, submission number, as I mentioned, and then we'll get a notification number once Health Canada has reviewed and approved. And just so you know, and to prepare, and this is a lot of the questions that I get asked about what is needed, like how do I gather the information? So much like your other registrations in other countries that you do, of course, the name and address of the manufacturer, the name of the cosmetic, function of the cosmetic, list of ingredients with concentrations, form of the cosmetic, name and address of the Canadian manufacturer, importer, or distributor. We will get to that later. Name and title of the person responsible, person who signed it, and additional documents and pictures. So at the end of the form, there'll be attachments where you can attach your Canadian label, you can attach your safety information, you can attach your claims testing. So anything that will help Health Canada to determine the overall safety, right, of the product and also the compliance of the product. And that's really important because we like to think that, okay, here's all the information, you have it, here is the safety piece of it, right? But the compliance piece is also very important. Many Canadian labels, or if you have not done a Canadian label, it is a little bit more complex, requires dual languages. So it's a little bit difficult to have a Canadian label with full compliance. And it applies to both the outer and the inner layer. So, and I'm going to use the term inner label, outer label. But for every cosmetic, you typically have a primary, and this is your tube or your jar, your container, right, that holds the physical product. On that primary package, you'll have what they're referring to as an inner label, right? So it's affixed or attached to the immediate container of a cosmetic, and requires the name of the manufacturer and the distributor, the address of place of business, and then product identity in terms of the common name or function. So very, very important to realize what goes on that primary packaging. The outer label, and this is if you have a carton or if you have it in a kit, or if you have it in a bag with a hang tag, right? So this is affixed or attached to the outer container of the cosmetic product. And this will require the list of listed with the ingredient names in descending order of weight importance, and then ingredients with concentrations of less than 1% may be listed in any order. Again, everything that's on that inner label also needs to be shown on the outer label as well. One of the big pieces that we always talk about is the list of ingredients, because it's very difficult to understand when you're working within different countries, the verbiage of the ingredient, right? Are you allowed to put peppermint in parentheses? Are you allowed to put avocado, right? The difference between the common names, the inky names, right? But every single cosmetic label it's mandatory to contain that list of ingredients, and products with a secondary outer package can choose to place their ingredients list on the secondary package alone. If the product is a standalone and does not have a secondary package, the list of ingredients must be on the primary quote unquote inner packaging. So very, very similar to probably what everyone experiences with FDA cosmetic labeling and EU, UK labeling. And for makeup and nail varnish or polish that's sold in a range of colors, that kind of plus minus may contain symbol. It can be indicated in the pigment section and used in a range. So meaning if you have a eyeshadow palette and you have 12 different shades, it's all the same formula, but not every shade has red iron oxide. You can use that may contain and list all of the pigments in all of the shades at the end, as long as the formula is completely the same across the board. And very, very similar to how FDA also handles multiple shades and in one SKU as well. I've also seen this done in lipstick kits and lip glosses. So, or if you're developing a universal IL so that you can print it on pack and not have to print individual ILs, this is a great way to do that as well. If the cosmetic contains a fragrance or a flavor, you need to add the words parfum or aroma. And this is directly related to needing to have both English and French on your cosmetic label. And for anyone who has not done this yet, when I say everything has to be translated, everything has to be translated. The bilingual requirement, any piece of information has to have those official languages. And this includes the product identity, the weight declaration, claims, marketing copy, instructions for use, precautions, common ingredient names, right? So how we just said parfum, so water as well, and any other text on pack. The only exception is the represented address on pack. Obviously, you can have that as your US address, or if you're from out of the US, your other address as well. But there's a new regulation about that we'll get into later as well. One of the big things that has been coming out, and this is really to do with the new regulation coming out of Quebec, is to make sure that all of the bilingual requirements have the same prominence, meaning that if you have your type size that says product identity, 0.86 centimeters, right? Then your French needs to be both that 0.86 centimeters. And I think this is one of the things some brands tried to supplement when they were making these universal labels, whether it be inner label or outer label. They were trying to kind of fit everything on there. And everyone's probably looking at this and saying, how can we fit any more on a label? Like where is this going to go? How is this going to happen? Even EU, UK, all of their new labeling requirements as well. But it's important to understand that there is a huge population in Canada, specifically Quebec, where French is their language, and they might not be able to understand every single word in English, especially if it comes down to a warning or a safety or instructions of use. So it's very, very important to have that dominance shown. It's also to show, right, that they have two official languages, right, and to make sure that each piece of that is represented in those cosmetic products. So I'm all for this. I think it is a great move. What I have seen and a lot of brands, and I'll talk through this of like how to prepare. What I have seen a lot of brands do is move to a solo Canadian carton, especially when they have a lot of information already on their cartons. It's not ideal, especially if that is not a huge market for you. But there's definitely ways to go about this. We have designers at Registrar to help through this as well, to help make sure your label has all the information, is in compliance, is translated, and still looks the way that you want it to look. I could tell you about 10 years ago, labels were completely different, right? We wanted to put all the marketing claims on there. We wanted to put all the benefits. We wanted to basically put our product on a pedestal with the language that we had on a carton. So it gets a little hard, especially from the PD marketing teams and even the claim substantiation teams. When you have these great, strong claims for your product, you want to have them on the box. So when the consumer hits it, they can read all the claims on the box, but regulatory compliance for labeling is definitely making that more of a struggle, and a little bit harder to kind of get that message out to the consumer of why they should purchase your product. Still staying on the consumer packaging and labeling regulation, right? So not a new word, but principal display panel, right? PDP. We always hear this in other countries as well. You need to have the net quantity and then the identity of the product in terms of its common or generic name or in terms of its function. And it's important to note here, right? So is it a moisturizer, right? Is it a lip gloss? So definitely understand that has to be displayed on the principal display panel. And for prepackaged products that show the quantity of the product, you need to show it by volume when the product is a liquid or viscous, and by weight when the product is a solid. So we got some lipsticks on the side there. We got some other moisturizers. And again, it needs to be declared directly on that principal display panel. There is a lot of questions about the type height of this as well. It's a regulation for FDA cosmetics that the net weight has to be a certain size. And again, Health Canada has all of the sizing requirements on their website, and it just has to be in their height specification for their declaration. I will tell you, having to do a global label, you have to make sure you comply with both FDA US cosmetic type sizes for net quantity for Health Canada. It can get very hard. So we definitely have the right team to help you make sure that you're being compliant with that type size. And quick story, I have run into a lot of brands who were stopped by their retailers specifically of not having the right height size for their net quantity. So not directly related to a Health Canada, Health Canada themselves coming in about the regulation. It was the retailer. And the retailer was very specific to say, we have to follow all of Health Canada compliance or we are the ones in trouble as well. So for those that are like, I ship direct to my retailer, I've been doing this forever, it's fine. The retailers now are feeling the pressure. And also a lot of retailers now have you go through the steps of checking the compliance with Health Canada. So there really is no reason that you shouldn't be checking all your labels and making sure they're compliant with existing and all the new regulations. And it's a lot. We'll get into the updates, but it is a lot of information and a lot of things that need to be on the package in order to be compliant. Manner of declaring the net weight, right? So we just talked about that, right? If you're a solid versus a liquid, the sizing requirements we just talked about, and then exemptions to the net quantity declarations. I think the most asked questions is what is the exemption? And I'm always asked that, I think, first, and it's very few and far between. Exemptions to the net quantity declarations when a product is declared by count and the count is less than 2. Net quantity of a kit for single use or application may be expressed by giving its identity and an indication in English and in French that the contents are sufficient for single use or application. And then the net quantity of a kit for multiple uses or applications may be expressed. This kit contains 10 artificial nails, 5 ml adhesive, and 7 ml cleanser. And again, it is very, very complicated if you do not understand the net quantity regulations and the compliance pieces of it. But our team is here and we can help you get through all of this, especially as we're getting into holiday, right? Everyone's planning for holiday 2026. And the kit is the hugest thing. The kits are the hugest things for holidays. So you never want to be out of compliance when you're going into a retailer, or even when you're going into the direct to consumers, right? Because this is where you can really get your brand in trouble for something that is so simple and easily, able to be corrected with the right compliance teams. Okay, so got through, right, of what Health Canada requires of cosmetics. There is a lot more, more detail into it, right? So getting into hot lists, getting into the DSL list, getting into all of that. But we're really here to determine what these updates are. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to talk about what they are, and I'm going to talk about if you're in this position, right, how you can start to prepare. The labeling updates, this is just happening everywhere. We just saw it with MoCRA. We're seeing it in the EU and UK with the microplastic labelings, right? Like the governments are determined to label these products a certain way. And those authorities are in the front place of it, right? Wanting to protect the consumer. And I say this because we have a huge generation of, I would say, 8 to 15-year-olds trying cosmetics, right, and experimenting with cosmetics. I have never seen this age range so well versed in cosmetic products and routines and doing certain things with cosmetic products. It is astonishing, and I love it, right? Because this is my industry. This is everything I love doing. So I love to see how we have just expanded to this new generation, and we're starting them young, right? But in that same breath, right, that's the safety that we need to understand, right? We're always so used to testing on certain people, and we'll get into this deeper. But there's certain things that we need to start making sure that are on our labels to protect everyone who's using that cosmetic product. So definitely enhanced labeling requirements for consumer communication, right? So now labels. Labels must provide all essential details about the product, including its ingredients and safety warnings. If anyone here has ever done a Health Canada cosmetic notification form, and you're working through the ingredients and going through, right, there's certain ingredients that require safety warning, right? So anything with an AHA, anything that's using glycolic acid, certain retinols, even certain cleansers, right? We have to make sure that we're labeling these products correctly. And again, I know there's very little room left on this label, but I can tell you how little labels have safety warnings that should have safety warnings or are missing their instructions of use. And I think that is a huge, huge mistake, because we are not guiding the consumer how to use this product safely. And I see why most brands choose to do this, because it's a lip gloss. Why do I need to tell the person how to use a lip gloss? But we're entering a whole new regulatory compliance piece on labelings, and understanding that the use of the product and how to use the product have to be connected. Labels now must also display a phone number, email, or website for consumer inquiries. And this is directly related, right, to them having an issue or an adverse event or a problem with the product. Much like we saw with Mokra, it is becoming very clear that getting to a brand and communicating to a brand is a lot harder than one would have guessed, or there is a lack of this happened. Where do I go for questions or comments or whatnot? A lot of people have taken to social media, and that has somewhat worked, but this needs to be regulated, right? One good thing is that they did take into consideration for small containers. They have allows for alternate labeling methods to fit essential information without sacrificing clarity, right? Because at the end of the day, you have all this information on the label. Is it legible? Can you read it? So small containers can use fold-out labels, adhesive tabs, or even a QR code to direct consumers to full ingredient lists and safety information. I have seen brands do it, each individual way. Some are more comfortable labeling it with a email. Some are more comfortable having all the information on QR codes. It's really a brand decision, but the overall, piece that I want everyone to take away from here is to have all this information on there. So all the information that we talked about previously, right? And then now these new labeling updates. And it could be a lot. So I would definitely go to your current labels, right? This is what I've been telling everyone. Do an audit of your current labels going to your SKUs going to Canada. If they already include this information, great. If they do not, start making the necessary updates that need to happen. For instance, for the Quebec, right, that is already in effect. So labels should already be having that dominance of French and English, and moving towards the compliance for these updates as well. And I have some deadlines for you guys. We'll wrap up with, so you can kind of know what timing looks like on your side. I do get a lot of questions about, well, we have all these labels and we have none of this information. What do we do? And the best answer I can give you is to over label, and to be compliant. In Canada, I do have brands that are exhausting their labels and taking, chances, but, the best course of action is if you have the time to make the updates, if you have the ability to make the updates, you should do so. And I say that because when asked, you're going to have to hand out all this information, to Health Canada, and share that information with them. So ingredient and fragrance allergen disclosures. We're already getting hit in the EU and the UK with this. I'm not surprised. Health Canada follows the EU, UK very closely in their regulations. And it is good to see that everyone is kind of moving in the right direction and picking up the regulations that EU, UK have implemented, because maybe this will lead us to everyone following the same type of structure and same type of requirements, and then eventually leading us to one label and one compliance check. We're not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever see it in my lifetime, but for Health Canada specifically, mandatory use of the international nomenclature of cosmetic ingredients names. This is a database that the Personal Care Products Council has developed and published. It is now mandatory for manufacturers to use INCI names for ingredients on labels. Now, this is really specific if you're not selling in other countries. If you're only selling into Canada, this is where this would kind of apply to you. Canada has seen an increase of incorrect ingredient names, leading to them to believe that the consumer is not fully exposed to the ingredient in the product. And again, I think this is going to be an ever-changing conversation that that the beauty industry has on how to properly address the certain ingredients that have varying names, and this is the best way to do it. Revised concentration ranges. So they updated concentration ranges for ingredient disclosures. So when you go to fill out your cosmetic notification form, you will have to list all of your ingredients, and then there will be an option to put the exact concentration of that ingredient or a range, right? So from 1% to 3%, or from, 10% to 13%. I don't know the ranges off the top of my head. But this is supposed to help expedite this Health Canada review and movement. And even there's like a search feature that you could do in the cosmetic notification form as well. This helps them expedite this and make sure that if you, for instance, you don't want to disclose the exact range, you are using that ingredient at the right safe levels, right? And this is really more focused on anything that can be considered like an irritant or harsh, right? Like the AHAs, I always talk about the BHAs, right? So those levels, right, extremely high could be concerning for safety. And here's where Health Canada has to come back and ask you for additional safety information. And that is going to help put a huge, shift in how the ingredient concentrations are viewed upon as well within Health Canada. A lot of people don't like this because it is extremely tedious work. It is a lot to type in. It's a lot to take care of. So that is why, we have people like Registrar who have a whole team of people to help you get through this. Sitting there entering in all these, 50 some odd ingredients and all of their concentrations, we have a lot of better things that we should be doing. We'll talk about our offerings, but that is definitely something that our team is capable of doing. We do it so well, and we're able to update and change it accordingly as you move through the product. Fragrance allergens. Many of you that probably have seen me present before, I love fragrance. I love the complexity of it. And I also love the allergens. And when I say love allergens, I love that we have moved into a place in industry that we are able to really define what a fragrance allergen is and how many there are out there. I cannot tell you the countless stories I hear from friends, not in industry, friends in industry, using products and having reactions and not thinking it's ever a fragrance allergen, when these allergens are the main contributor to reactions. And I want to be very clear about that because, there are other ingredients and items that people can have reactions to, obviously. But these allergens are known irritants. They have studied them. They understand that when applied to the skin can cause a reaction. So the mandatory disclosure of allergens is specified concentrations in specified concentrations on label. So for instance, a rinse off product, any fragrance allergen present in excess of 0.01 must be clearly indicated on the label. For any leave on product, the threshold is even lower at 0.001. And, again, following suit with EU, this is a really great movement for the transparency of your products. Now, this does mean that if you don't have this, you're probably going to have to update labels. So I wanted to give you some dates so you could understand what this looks like. They really wanted to have a transition period, Health Canada, and I applaud them for that because it is very hard to update labels. It is very hard to go back and redo the artwork, get a new ingredient listing. What I'm finding as we are going through this and in it is that most suppliers do not have the extended 81 fragrance allergen list. So that is where we're running into this, trying to dig deeper with our suppliers to say, we need to know if this does have an allergen or it doesn't have an allergen. Obviously certain ingredients do not, we know, but for those that are questionable, we have to get that extended 81 fragrance allergen list. Again, so April 12th was a huge date. New and existing cosmetics must disclose the existing 24 fragrance allergens. If you could believe it or not, people were not putting that on the label. And a lot of people were unaware of that original regulation. August 1st, 2026, new cosmetics must disclose the 81 fragrance allergens. Again, we're able to work with you and help you through that. Our team is trained to know what ingredients might have potential allergens and how to get the right documentation to request that. Want to be very clear too as well, this, we're saying fragrance allergens, but it does not necessarily need to be tied to a fragrance. This could be tied to a natural oil. It could be tied to some type of complex. We say fragrance allergens because that is mostly where we find them, and that is how they're classified. But they could be in other pieces of ingredients and other raw materials that you're using. My best example is always the lavender oils, the lemon oils, rose oils, right? All of those could potentially have, in most cases, have a fragrance allergen that would technically need to be disclosed. So definitely have a double check. Our team can also help you do a double check for it, because August 1st, 2028, existing products must disclose the 81 fragrance allergens. So they are giving time to update your labels, but I would not wait to the 2028 date, especially if you're doing reorders or anything of that nature. We can come to us. We can help you determine those fragrance allergens, and you can update that label with our team. And again, I think it also goes to show how the transparency of something like this, right? The concentrations of all ingredients, right? And the fragrance allergens in at certain concentrations is really going to streamline the visibility that Health Canada has on the products, and then also the consumer themselves, which could lead to potentially less problems on your side, right? If someone knows they have an allergy to a fragrance allergen, they're not going to purchase it, and they're going to make sure that they don't use it, and then therefore not have a reaction to have to be contacting you. And nobody likes bad press at all. Another big update was the terms and definitions. So manufacturer, a person in Canada who sells the cosmetics under their own name, trademark, trade name, or other identifying mark they own or control. A person in Canada authorized to act on behalf of a foreign entity that sells a cosmetic under its own name and brand. So very, very important to understand that definition of a manufacturer is the big reason if you do not have a physical address in Canada, how you need to have a responsible person be responsible for your products. And this is the hugest shift that happened, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Importer, a person that imports a cosmetic into Canada for the purpose of selling it. If no importer exists, a Canadian fabricator or processor acting on behalf of the foreign brand owner takes on that responsibility. And there's all different contact information in the cosmetic notification form that is now mandatory. They need to know where these products are being made, who's responsible for them, and who in Canada is physically responsible for them. So this is a huge update, and we'll talk about the contact information. And it's definitely something that has a lot of brands struggling right now to be able to work with a Canadian representative. And then lastly, and then one more thing, I think it's very helpful that the manufacturers and the importers clarified their responsibilities and definitions related directly to these two, because tightening that compliance and ensuring accountability across the distribution chain is so important. And I say that because you want to know who is responsible at what part when something does go wrong. And then lastly, the product classification. Cosmetics now are classified as either rinse off or leave on. It is a mandatory box that has to be checked, and this will go directly impacting it. It's going to impact obviously your fragrance allergens, but this is really going to impact testing and labeling as well. And I say that because if you have a rinse off product versus a leave on product, your testing strategy should be very different. You should be thinking about a long-term, the leave-on long-term product very much differently than your rinse-off product. So the big question, the cosmetic information and responsible person. In April 2024, Health Canada expanded the definition of manufacturer to include a representative with a Canadian address. Non-Canadian brands must have a representative based in Canada to sell cosmetics on the Canadian market. It is not a shock, I feel. This is something that was also under MOCRA for any foreign facility, right? Having a US agent. And the updated CNF guidance now requires businesses to provide a Canadian address for the manufacturer or the importer that's listed in their guidance. This change ensures that Health Canada has a designated regulatory contact within Canada. And then again, according to that revised regulation, a manufacturer is now defined as a Canadian manufacturer that sells a cosmetic under its own name or controlled trademark, just as I mentioned before, and the responsible person in Canada acting on behalf of the manufacturer without a Canadian address. So if no entity in Canada qualifies as a manufacturer, the importer, or any individual who manufactures or processes a cosmetic in Canada is considered the manufacturer. And again, that was a lot of information, but what you need to know is you need to have a physical person in Canada. They are your authorized entity to act on behalf of you, right? And Health Canada allowed a transition period before the strict enforcement. I don't know how many of you woke up on March 5th, 2025, went to do a cosmetic notification and was denied because you do not have an address of a manufacturer in Canada. I actually was one of those people. I logged on and I went to go do a notification, and that was it. It was done. And it's very important, right, to have that person that is doing these notifications for you and being your manufacturer in Canada, right? Someone that you trust, someone that's able to answer these questions if Health Canada or the minister asks for certain information. And again, Registrar can help you with that transition period if you have not transitioned yet, or if you are just getting started to enter the Canadian market and you're not really sure how this applies to you or how exactly you're able to do this, but we're here, we can help you. Move along to safety. Again, I think it's really important that the updated guidelines mandate that products undergo rigorous safety testing, especially products that contain ingredients known to cause allergies or other reactions. And I say this because I think we are very much used to our simple RIPT done on 50 subjects with normal skin and no issues, nothing. And we've lived by that guideline, but there definitely is opportunity to expand the more additional safety testing, right, that we could help potentially put the warnings on if needed. So for instance, right, sensitive skin, dry skin, things of that nature that could potentially cause irritation or cause issues with the person using the consumer product can show how much that can change. Huge shift that I've seen is the safety and use testing. I've had the opportunity to be a part of over 60 safety and use testing. I've seen brands start testing on the age range, right? So the age range we were talking about before, the 8 to 15. I see people testing that they're able to report that they had a small reaction, right? Because in RIPTs, there's a very strict guideline on how to follow it. With a safety and use, when someone's using it, the person can actually say, like, I did get a little red from here. It did feel a little stingy, right? So that's all good information that you can use in order to truly develop your product to have the right instructions of use and the right demographic to use it, right? Not for sensitive skin, not for children under 15. And that is going to be a huge shift. I've already seen it happen. I've seen the national ad agencies question certain products that are really marketed towards children and not have the proper safety testing for children. So there is definitely a lot that is coming down that we have to be very aware of for safety testing. Dermatologist tested, pediatrician tested, right? These are all really good pieces of the puzzle that you have to put together in order to prove your safety of the product. In addition, with the updated right instructions of use and updated safety warnings that people are going to now be required to put on pack, right? This is going to lead into, okay, if the product is used in this certain way, you know, what is the safety testing that proves used in this way is safe, right? And that's where we get into the safety and use testing. I'm not going to lie to anyone. It's expensive, obviously. And that is where, you know, a lot of brands are running into. I want to make sure my product is safe. I want to make sure people are safe using it, but I'm struggling here with those testing cost, right? So there's definitely a different type of way you can go about this. And many testing labs have been developing specifically for, you know, brands to understand the safety and use piece of it. I've seen brands do cleansers, moisturizers, and then, you know, serums all in one, you know, trying to reduce those costs. So it's not the best news, but it definitely is moving towards making sure that the product is safe for the consumer when used. The hugest part to take away is that you have to keep records of this safety testing because if your product is inspected or if there is an issue, they are allowed to request all these safety records. And you know, it's much like MOCRA, right? Trying to show that you did the due diligence, that you were able to test on the different demographics that would use this product. You tested it as it was used, you know, and again, this also includes expanded testing for long-term effects and potential interactions between ingredients. But more importantly, they're really looking for that you have the data, that you have been monitoring the data, you know, post-market launch. What does that look like? Because Health Canada is moving right into the same realm, right, of adverse event reporting and product recalls. FDA just launched, right, their visible adverse event site that you can see their reports to. So Health Canada is taking the same lead. And again, this is not to hurt the brands. It's not to hurt the industry. This is to make sure that the consumers are safe and that you're actually protecting your brand. And that is the biggest takeaway I always have from when I speak about adverse events and the new regulations coming in so deeply, is that there hasn't been a lot that has been recorded or reported because of all these cases, right? No contact on label, not the right reporting system. The authority isn't able to take in these adverse events in the right way, right? And a combination of all of that is a perfect storm to lead us to seeing more adverse events in industry, having more issues with certain products, right? And discovering it after the fact. And I think that's where, as a brand too, you're going to see where other people are struggling in terms of adverse events and what is happening with the reactions, right? That's just more evidence and more ability to formulate your products not to do that, right? So take it all in and understand that it's definitely a move in the right direction and that we are trying to move into a world where we have minimal or very little adverse event reactions. Okay. Key compliance dates. So October 9th, 2024 was initial changes to labeling, ingredient disclosure, and updated definitions. So this is already in effect. February was the updated cosmetic ingredient hot list. So if you had not reviewed the update to that, I would go back and double check. March 4th was the Canadian-based representative. April 12th, 2026, manufacturers must ensure that all products comply with the new concentration range requirements, fragrance allergens, and safety testing of their products. And then August 1st, 2028, full compliance with all updated regulations, including those specific to small container labeling and contact information requirements. And sorry, I just realized it's March 4th written there, and it was actually March 5th. So where you are in this compliance process, you know, really determines your next steps and how to move forward with making sure you're compliant for that 2028 date. And like I said, they are allowing this transition because they want brands and they want their manufacturers to be able to adhere to these dates and adhere to the compliance without struggling. I see a lot of these new regulations coming out and these dates, and so one of the dates I saw was like 2050, right? So it's a lot to be said that there'll be a lot changing also in the next 2 years. So the more that you can stay on top of this and make those changes now, helps you when the next set of regulations come out. And I'm laughing when I say that because there will be another set of regulations that come out. We are seeing more governmental authorities update more frequently, which is a good thing, right? We always said MOCRA, like there hadn't been a change in 84 years, and this huge change comes, right? Where other countries who have had established cosmetic regulations are updating and slowly going through the process that they need to in order to ensure the consumer is protected and that safe products are being put on the market. I would love to take you through how we can help. Again, cosmetic notification form filing. And this also includes your Health Canada, your Canadian address representative, which is needed for that CNF form. We're able to provide that for you. Formula compliance review. Again, there was updates to the hot list and overall compliance of the formulation and its ingredients. Evidence of safety. We can walk through of your product, the function, its instructions, and potentially either help you build out a safety testing strategy, or review your current safety testing and see if it's robust enough to withstand if Health Canada asks for it during an inspection. Cosmetic label check with translation services. Again, I can't urge you guys enough, get your labels checked. It is the #1 stop at both retailers and at the border because it's so visible, right? It's right there, and it is so easy to just update your labels and get it compliant now. As I mentioned, the responsible person service, and then due diligence service, right? So anything that you have currently, say you did your own notifications up until now, and you are looking at today's presentation and you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I probably missed a bunch of this. We can help you get through that, go through your existing cosmetic notifications, do the compliance checks, do the reviews, do any updates if you have had formulas changed as well. Our team can definitely help you get through that. The most important part is that you're not in it alone, right? You don't have to ask all these questions to yourself. You can definitely lean on us to walk you through this process because it is complicated. We're going to have a few minutes for questions, but I just wanted to make sure you had John's contact. He is wonderful, definitely one of the best in cosmetics, and definitely will help you through your journey, whether you're just starting this journey or if you're already in the journey with somebody else and you need some help getting through it. And let's take some questions. Oh, this is a great question. Are there any exemptions for direct-to-consumer e-commerce? So actually, no, there is no exemptions for direct-to-consumer. You actually take, it's obviously a lower risk, but if there is any potential that there's an adverse event reaction with the person using your product in Canada, that is where it'll become extremely exposed that you didn't have all of the information and everything needed in order to probably let the consumer contact you, and then you also properly be able to address the adverse event information. How can we find out the exact information about compliance and the changes that have been done before these key compliance dates? So everything that I kind of walked through in the beginning of the presentation was where we sit right now with Health Canada. So if there is, and again, that due diligence piece that you need, you can come to us and we can help you get through checking your existing products, labels, etc., and seeing if they are to the most up-to-date. Going back and checking, I was compliant on this date, or I was compliant up to this point. I'm not sure would be the best beneficial piece unless you're asking because you have labels you have to exhaust or things of that nature. Again, let's find another one. Okay, someone is asking, confirming August 1st, 2028 is the compliance deadline. So yes, that is the confirmed date that they have right now. Health Canada has not missed any of their dates, surprisingly. So I think I'm not going to move that. They're not going to move that date. So I'm not going to lead you to believe that they would. They've been hitting their dates every single time. And I would keep to that August 1st, 2028 date, but I would start now. This goes by so fast, I'm sure, as you guys know, and it is really, really important to start that process as soon as possible. Couple questions. Everyone's going to get a recording of this presentation, and if you have any other questions, because I know we're coming to the top of the hour, and if I don't get to them, please email John. He will be able to direct you to the person that can answer them, whether it be me or somebody else on the team. All right, what else do we have here? Raw materials that are sold to Canadian cosmetic manufacturers or co-packers, labeling requirements. So if it's a raw material and you're shipping a raw material to a manufacturer, you have to follow all the guidelines of shipping that go under the SDS, right? So any UN numbers or anything of that nature. And then you also have to make sure that you follow the guidelines of that raw material being shipped, right? So if it's something hazardous, if it's something explosive, flammable, etc., those raw materials are not following these specific guidelines. These are specific to finished cosmetic products that you are selling into selling into Canada. The one thing I will say is that if you have like a raw material that you're selling as a finished good, like vitamin E oil or lavender water, that would then fall under these cosmetic guidance regulations. Let's see, what else? Other questions. Hi, for small containers, which information can be on the QR code and which info could be on the label? So in that first slide deck, that's where I had said you had to have the net quantity, the product function or common name of the product, and then obviously the manufacturer's information and contact information. That is required on those labels. So much like what we follow for FDA small labeling, that the difference is they allow this to be on a QR code as well. I do see a ton of brands just put a QR code on their packaging and it leads to them to all that information. So important to know the difference between an FDA label, right, and a Canadian label as well. Can you recommend a lab in Canada that can provide stability, compatibility testing? Not in Canada. So I don't know if I confused anybody, but your testing, right? Any testing or safety testing that you do does not need to be in Canada. It could be outside of Canada. It could be in the US. It can be in a different country. We do have companies we can recommend that do stability and compatibility testing. So reach out to John and we'll get you connected with them. Some of them even offer some discounts. So definitely get those names from us. Let's see what else we can see. Other questions. A lot of questions on the allergens. So do we have to list the allergen category or do we add it to the list of ingredients on the label? So right now you're adding the actual allergen to the label, like inside, like your ingredient listing on the label. You're probably asking this because of what the NHP follows for when they're talking about allergens in parentheses, but this specifically would be the allergen name. The name of the allergen in the ingredient listing. What else do we see here really quickly I can get for you guys? If you're selling a multi-branded kit like an advent calendar, you need to list on the main panel of the packaging example of the front panel the cumulative total of net weights or all the items. So you would break it up to all the different items and then that are in the actual kit, unless it was like one of those examples that I showed you where it said like contains 10 artificial nails, 5 ml adhesive, 7 ml cleanser. So you do need to have that net quantity listed out there for each of the individual items, not as a cumulative total. And that's important, especially if the products in the kit can individually be taken out on their own. you know, you would only do that if it was like one cumulative product in one, which most kits are not. So we are at the top of the hour. I just want to thank everyone for joining me today. I hope I at least solved some of your questions about Canada. Definitely made sure to give you the updates that were most important to selling cosmetic products. Again, any questions, email John. We are happy to answer them. We're happy that you've taken the time to come and see what we're about and all the things that we can offer. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you soon.